What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the August 28th, 2021 edition of Talking Smack. Back in the studio this week with Kevin Patrick and Matt Camp, running down the biggest headlines from the show, including the whole Happy Corbin character, Roman Reigns being confronted by Finn Balor to close the show, the whole women's Fatal 4-Way, which they recap and show highlights from at the start of the show that saw Bianca Belair beat Liv Morgan, Zelina Vega, and Carmella to once again become the number one contender to the SmackDown Women's Championship. And Matt Camp talks about how he really felt like Belair needed that win, which she did. I mean, coming off that 26-second loss at SummerSlam, I wouldn't say that she was buried with that loss. I've said that before. I felt very strongly about it in the moment, how dumb it was, and I still maintain that. She wasn't buried, though. She can always bounce back. She was over on this show. She got a very good reaction on the show, which honestly, it's hard to tell, though, because they like to pipe in the noise, so it's kind of hard to decipher what's real and what's not. But either way, she got a good win, and she needed that win to bounce back from the loss at SummerSlam. So they throw it to Kayla Braxton, who interviews Liv Morgan backstage. It was cool to hear from Liv and not just from Bianca. I like Bianca, but it made sense for us to hear from Liv on the show, coming off her impressive performance in that match. And she was carrying something that had like smoke coming out. I honestly thought she was like smoking on the show here. I don't know anything about smoking a blunt or whatever, but I honestly thought she was smoking a blunt for a second. What the fuck is she doing? And she was waving it all over the place, and I'm like, oh, okay. She talked about it. She was like, oh, it's positive vibes. Again, it's probably something simple. I just have no fucking clue what it was, but she was waving it around in Kayla's face saying, oh, positive vibes. We need whatever, positivity up in here. So she feels like a winner, she says, coming off that performance, and she should. She was very impressive, and I said in my SmackDown audio review yesterday, cheap plug if you haven't already checked it out, that she looked great in defeat, and I've never been the biggest Liv Morgan fan, but she's been impressive lately in her few singles matches. She was getting over going into Money in the Bank. They pulled her off the show for a month because she wasn't on SummerSlam. But yeah, it's cool to see her back, and she looked good in defeat. And she felt like she took Belair to the limit, and she's taking that loss with a lot of gratitude. And she also reveals something to us here, and I assume this is a shoe because it looked like she was, speaking from the heart here, and she was about to cry or whatever. She said when Becky got pregnant and left a year and a half ago, back in May of 2020, she hugged Becky backstage and said to her, oh, I'll miss you, good luck, blah, blah, blah. Becky then told her in her ear, you will be champion by the time I come back. And obviously she hasn't won a title yet. She's come close. She came close to becoming Miss Money in the Bank. And she wants to prove her right, not only by becoming champion, but being the one to beat Becky for that title, which would be very cool. Throw it back to the studio, Kevin Patrick and Matt Camp talking about Nakamura and Rick Boogs' win over Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode from SmackDown, with Patrick calling Boogs very impressive, and I agree. Patrick kind of compares the Nakamura and Boogs alliance to Lashley and MVP, and it's not the same thing, but he talks about the influence that Boogs has had on Nakamura that's allowed him to really hit his stride lately and really do some of the best stuff that he's done since being called up to the main roster. And arguably, he hasn't done a lot, but he doesn't need to. People just love Shinsuke Nakamura. So it's really resulted in some great reactions for the guy on TV, which is awesome. They replay the Happy Corbin and Big E segment from SmackDown, which was great. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Probably my favorite part of the show from Friday. And Matt Camp says that Baron Corbin, or Happy Corbin, found out that money can indeed buy happiness. And he feels that this isn't over between Big E and Corbin, despite Big E turning down Corbin's offer to buy the Money in the Bank briefcase off of him on SmackDown. We hear from Corbin. He talks about his transformation and how he won the money in Vegas a couple of days ago, how he went from a rags to riches story in literally a span of a few days from Vegas to where he is now. And he said he's going to be managing this money fantastically, he says. And he just can't complain about how great life is for him right now. And that was really about it. He didn't really give any insightful comments or whatever. Just we got to see him in his element here as Happy Corbin, and it was very entertaining. I'm very much digging this new character twist for Corbin. They replayed Dominic Mysterio versus Sami Zayn. That's how Dominic lose to Sami on SmackDown this week, teasing the tension between the two. And Matt Camp says, I don't know if a split between the two is the right move, and he just doesn't think they're on the same page. Oh, you fucking think? No shit. They also recapped the show closing segment that saw Roman Reigns and the Usos beat down Balor before the Profits made the save, and they attacked the Usos to close the show. Matt Camp doesn't bet against Roman Reigns, but he's very intrigued to see Roman and Balor next week for the Universal Championship, and you can count me in on that. Kayla Braxton interviews Balor for the second straight week here on Talking Smack backstage for some very quick comments, and Balor says, listen, I knew I was walking into the Lion's Den here on the show tonight, going up to Roman, attacking him. I knew I had to get in the first shot, and I got what I wanted is the important thing. I got what I wanted, that being a Universal title match. And next week, I'll see you next week, Roman, and I'll see that Universal Championship around my waist as well. That's not what he said exactly, but he basically just told Roman, I'll see you next week. But that's what he was implying. Good stuff here. I thought this was a very solid edition of Talking Smack based off the recent studio standards. Balor was short, sweet, direct to the point. Great stuff. Corbin, very entertaining. And Morgan, we got to hear from her too, and she's great. So a very good episode of Talking Smack this week, one of the better editions in recent memory. You can check it out right now on Peacock or on WWE Network elsewhere. If you guys enjoyed the review, please be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content, including WWE 24 reviews of WrestleMania 37 Night 1 and Night 2. Those should be up at some point, probably tomorrow. Time will tell. More interviews from WrestleMania weekend, SummerSlam weekend in Vegas last week, and much more. More live reaction videos. I will be at All Out next weekend, so you can expect more live reaction videos from that show and Rampage next week here on the channel. Stay tuned for that shit. And have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.